Welcome to the American Shoulder and Elbow Surgeons podcast. I'm your host, Peter Chalmers, a shoulder and elbow surgeon at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Brian Waterman, a sports and shoulder surgeon at Wake Forest in North Carolina. Brian, how are you?
Hey, Peter, doing great.
Before we get started, I should mention the views expressed in this podcast do not necessarily affect the views of the American Shoulder and Elbow Surgeons Society, the University of Utah, Wake Forest University, or the institutions of any of our guests. Okay, so today we have an episode on all the programs the American Shoulder and Elbow Surgeons have developed to help young surgeons. And there's been so much work in this area that we really wanted to highlight all the efforts the ASES has made. And to discuss, we've invited 3 young surgeons that have really been instrumental in working hard to develop these programs. First, from Duke University, we have Dr. Christopher Klifto. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Brian. Thank you for having me.
And the next from from Washington University in St. Louis, we have Dr. Melissa Wright. Melissa, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
And then finally, from the ACE Orthopedic Institute in Los Angeles, we have Dr. Daniel Acevedo. Danny, welcome to the podcast.
What's going on, Peter? What's going on, Brian? Thanks, everybody, for having me on.
Okay, so each of you has done great work for the SES, and I think all of it has been in a similar vein to improve the help the organization gives to young surgeons. And here at the podcast, many of our listeners are trainees and surgeons in the early parts of their careers. And so we wanted to give you a chance to highlight what you've done, but also to talk about what the ASES has meant to you as a young surgeon. So, Danny, I wanted to start with you. What does ASES membership mean to you? How have the ASES's offerings changed during the kind of past 5 to 10 years that as you become involved? Tell us a little bit about that.
For me, the ASES is really a chance for me to network academically. Obviously, I'm in private practice now, so it really kind of keeps my academic endeavors up, and I'm able to interact with other people like Melissa Wright, Joseph Aboud, yourself, and kind of stay on top of like the latest surgical techniques. But I think with the new offerings that they have with the mentor-mentee program, it's really kind of allowed me to grow. I had a mentee this past year, and that was a great experience. I try to, get in contact with them like once a month. But really what the mentor-mentee has allowed me to do is be in a group with other mentors and mentees. And even though I myself was a mentor, I was still able to learn from other mentors on advice that they were giving, practice changes that they were going through, how to incorporate certain things into your practice. So I think that these new offerings really kind of open it up to anybody making transitions to certain jobs or getting a new job, and really kind of has like that big brother, big sister feel now in the ASES, and you're not kind of just a number, and you actually feel like you're more a part of the ASES through some of these new offerings.
Melissa, let me pass this to you. Tell me about, as the answer to the same question, like what has the ASES meant to you, especially as the offerings have changed the past 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think ASES has been a great place for me to, as I started my career, and it was kind of right when they opened it up to fellow members. And so the opportunity to go to the meeting as a fellow and just start to kind of get to know some of these shoulder surgeons that, I'd only read papers of, and actually have the opportunity to network and kind of learn from them in person. And then as I kind of moved into practice, and have been trying to figure out, what are some of the things I want to do with my career, I think I've been able to take advantage of that mentorship network and some of the new programming to help me kind of learn some skills that maybe I hadn't before, like being part of the leadership development program, so that I can be, the best surgeon I can be, and figure out, some of the other ways I can contribute to our profession. So I've been really thrilled with everything I've been able to be a part of.
All right, Chris Klifto, you've been really active in the ASES. Answer the same question. Like, what has the organization meant to you, and how do you feel like it's changed recently?
ASES has been a little bit different for me, particularly this organization, than others, because I feel like from moment one when I entered the organization, there was such an emphasis on making sure that I had a good experience and I was able to get as involved or not involved as I want to be. And, it kind of started with the mentor-mentee program, which Melissa and Daniel have done such a great job with, and continue to kind of continue that torch. with Joe Abood, like every 6 weeks on Sunday nights, calling me, and like there was no missing any of those. Like we had conversations that range from um, practice development to indications to research, and that just kind of has continued with various endeavors that we've all been working on to try to improve the experience for young members. And I can tell you, a lot of us are on leadership meetings right now. It's all about the young members, and we're always trying to figure out ways to get them more involved and to have a better experience, because it's kind of the lifeblood of the organization.
Yeah, Danny, I wanted to piggyback on some of the things we were just talking about. Across many of our organizations, the ASES, JSES, AAOS, maybe even the presidential elections, there seems to be a renewed focus on succession planning. We're all looking to equip the so-called next generation with skills and abilities to succeed. You help to lead our early career engagement and mentorship committee. And I just want to help out some of our listeners. Who are we targeting with these young surgeon initiatives? Maybe in other words, who are the early career surgeons? Is there an age cap? Maybe you share a little bit about who you're looking to have lean into the ASES.
I think a lot of it is just anybody who's interested in shoulder and elbow surgery. So obviously, if you're going to do a shoulder and elbow fellowship, the young surgeons, we want those, like we want fellows, people early in their career. So I think the new membership categories that we have has allowed them to kind of come and experience what the ASES is all about, because obviously there's a lot of different societies out there. There's AOSSM, there's AOS, and I really kind of just focus on ASES because shoulder and elbow is kind of like my love, and that's what I wanted to do with my career. But we also want to target some of the, obviously we know there's not a lot of shoulder and elbow spots. There's also sports medicine surgeons who do shoulder and elbow surgery, and try to include them as well if they have a strong interest in doing a lot of shoulder arthroplasty or complex shoulder procedures. We've allowed them to come in early too and kind of experience the ASES. And what we've noticed is that a lot of people like the ASES and what it has to offer, what our meetings are about, and like the way that we kind of interact with each other. And I think that it's definitely changing. So we just want to open up to a lot of the younger members, and we have different ways to advance, because when I was a resident, everyone thought that you couldn't get into the ASES unless you did a lot of research or did a lot of academics. But now you can be on committees, you could do a lot of different things to sort of advance through the ASES and kind of really make an impact in the society and get really involved without having to be academic and pumping out a bunch of research papers. There's different ways to do it. So I think we're just kind of opening it up to a lot of those people, especially in private practice, who may not have opportunities to do a lot of research, but are willing to give time to the society and have ideas or different skill sets that we can utilize to grow and become bigger.
Yeah, I love that. Kind of the Ellis Island of shoulder elbow care. We're really taking everybody and taking kind of a more inclusive approach to it. I think Peter and I wanted to talk a little bit about specific programs that you've been involved with. Now that we have kind of some of this laid out, I wanted to ask each of the individuals to lend their different perspectives about things that they were truly passionate about. And specifically, maybe Melissa, we can go to you and talk about the leadership development program. You, Peter, and myself all went through this together, and we've recently highlighted this in a focused episode of the podcast. But we're kind of curious to hear about your experience and how it's influenced your approach as you've returned from that.
Yeah, I think it was an incredible program, and really neat of ASES to have started this for its members. It's a kind of education that we don't get a lot of in other times in our career. We don't learn about leadership in med school or residency or fellowship often in a very specific way. And so I think it was really awesome to sit down and really think about those things in kind of an academic way, that hey, you can learn how to be your best version of a leader, and kind of look at really inward at yourself and what you can do better. And so I took all of that away and really enjoyed kind of that deep dive. And then on the other hand, not only was it kind of a sort of an introspective journey into how I can be a better leader in sort of different facets of my career, but it was a great networking opportunity. I was early in, I think I was in my first year of practice when I started it. And so, had only been in the ASES for like a year or so, and getting to meet a lot of different people who were in really different stages of their careers. And everybody was still there for that same goal of kind of trying to learn more about leadership and how to be a better leader. And so kind of creating that network was really neat. And I think since then, not only have I think maintained some of those relationships, I think that, I learned a little bit more about myself, and I've been able to take some of those lessons away as I try new things and get more involved in ASES on committees, and also get more involved at my own institution.
That's great. I remember sitting with you at the program, and I felt like it was really a great experience, and as you mentioned, a great experience opportunity not only to network but also to kind of take an introspective journey and figure out how to be better. Chris, I wanted to pass this to you because I know you've worked really hard on the technology committee, and you and I have done some of this work together, but you've really been the driving force. Tell us about the work you've done there. I mean, I know you have the app, the implant library, the Doc Matter community, the shed. There's so many different facets that are aimed at young surgeons. Tell us about the work you've done, and how you think it can help us to improve the working lives of young surgeons.
Well, yeah, happy to talk about that. But if anyone believes that I've done anything and it hasn't been Peter Chalmers just driving it per usual, then everyone's mistaken. I don't know how you get everything done. But anyway, so yeah, for a young member, the tech committee is a great thing to target, and we're always looking for new recruits and people with new ideas. And the committee is actually made up of mainly young members, and most of the things that we come up with actually aren't the thoughts or the ideas of the leadership of that committee. It's actually the young members. I mean, Peter, not like you're a seasoned member at this point, but like you came up with the idea of the implant database, and a year later we got approval, and the executive committee was behind us, and we were able to get that done. And we had different ideas of the Doc Matters platform, and that's, for those of you who don't know, that's being able to post cases and bounce ideas off of world experts, and it's been unbelievably successful. We had more posts than we ever thought we would, and more responses and views, and those are all just things that young members came up with, and they pitched it, and the society has been totally behind it. And we're looking for more things like that. And the shed was another thing. Like, maybe we were trying to figure out a way to increase our educational exposure for not only just the seasoned ASES member, but for the young person. And that was an idea that we worked with different committees with, and it was a partnership, and we were able to get it together and get some good content. So if you're looking for a good way to get involved with the committees, and you have a tech or just ideas, and you like platforms to kind of increase your exposure, it's a great committee to join.
I wanted to follow up with you real quick about the Doc Matter community, because I think this is a huge deal. I mean, this is a big step for the ASES to take. It's traditionally been a problem for the ASES. I mean, this is essentially the way that the Access group started. I was part of a group that nascently started called Cases, that was all based around this idea that you, as a young surgeon, you see complicated cases, and sometimes you don't know where to turn for help, because you would say, I don't know what to do with this. I really could use some advice. And this community that's, again, sponsored through the ASES, but the platform is called Doc Matter, but it's through the ASES, is a way to accomplish that, which is it's a huge resource, because you can post a case and then get 3 answers from world experts. So, Chris, tell us, like, how did you facilitate that? I mean, how did you get that done? Like, I think it's a huge step forward.
It kind of just goes to show you like how much the leadership cares about the young members. We had a tech committee call, which you were a part of, and we kind of pitched the idea around about potentially getting this platform going. And Pete McDonald was the president at the time, and I remember this meeting, like we were at an executive committee meeting, and he pitched it, or we pitched it, and he backed us up, and there were some arguments back and forth, like, do we need it? Do we not need it? And the whole thing was, we need to support our young members, especially the young members that don't have access to people that they could just walk down the hall, like a lot of us have, and ask a complex question. And the most important thing about that platform is if those of you haven't checked it out, it is a total safe spot. Like there has been almost no posting about, hey, you didn't do this right. It's all about helping the fellow member get the best outcome for their patient and have the best opportunity to succeed in the OR. And it ranges from journal club posts to posts for different webinars, and it's just a great platform for us all to communicate and be a society. Because like I do think that the best thing about ASES is that we're one big family and we all really do want each other to succeed.
Yeah, I like what you've done, Chris. I mean, I really think that this breaks down some of the traditional tribal barriers of our fellowship communities. I think we tend to silo, and what each of these does is brings us together and allows us to cross-pollinate based on our experience. One of the other ways that I think we've continued to do this is the mentor-mentee meeting and that longitudinal relationship. I've certainly benefited from being involved in that. And I've learned just as much from my mentees as the opposite. Danny, I know you and Melissa were really instrumental in putting this meeting together. What inspired you to do so, and how has it impacted your career?
Honestly, it just kind of fell into our lap, and I kind of ran with it. I was on a subcommittee, and we needed to kind of get it going, so we volunteered. And the first year was great. It was obviously new and it was a new type of meeting. And then we repeated it the second year. And I think that there's a lot of good talks that we heard about. We heard about different career changes, how to deal with certain problems, a little bit of some industry talks. And we were able to kind of hang out with our mentors and mentees for a few days. So it's a really kind of different kind of meeting, more of like a bonding, like a hangout type of experience. So I think it's really fun. And I think we're going to have different locations coming up over the next year as we kind of pass the torch to somebody else and try to get some new ideas and keep it fresh, make sure that it, we keep changing it, new topics, etc. But I think it's a great place. Like if you're going to have a mentee, the main thing is like, well, how am I going to hang out with my mentee? Am I going to get to know them? Like this is a great place, right, to hang out with your mentee, get some, learn about some shoulder topics, and then basically just hang out with a bunch of other mentors and mentees and really kind of get involved in the ASES. And I think that that's probably the biggest value of this meeting. So for me, I was trying to get involved, and I was in this committee, and I just kind of, threw my hat in and trying to step it up. And Melissa was there, and she was very instrumental. So was Shannon Carpenter the year before. And then last year, we brought on Ray Chen, a new guy, to pass the torch. He came to the meeting the first year, and he really liked it. So we brought him on the planning committee, and he was huge this year. So I think that there's a lot of interest in people wanting to kind of contribute and to the meeting and kind of keep it going and keep it fresh.
Yeah, it certainly seems like the follow-up has been particularly positive, and particularly as it relates to the speed mentoring sessions. Maybe Melissa, can you talk a little bit about the merits of this format, kind of the more rapid fire format with established leaders in the ASES? You think this is the way of the future so that people can get a little taste with individuals that are potentially from different backgrounds?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the big goals of the meeting was we wanted it to be very casual. I guess is maybe, I don't know if it's quite the right word, but we wanted it to be this environment where everybody felt super comfortable talking to everybody else at the meeting. And it wasn't going to be just a bunch of like lecture. We wanted people to be engaged. Even when people were giving talks, we wanted everyone to feel comfortable, stepping in, saying something, asking a question, because it was it's just a different kind of meeting than our traditional, more academic, kind of didactic type meetings. And so when we were thinking about ways to kind of create that environment, we came up with the idea of doing this speed mentoring to basically ensure that every mentee and every mentor at least had to say hi to each other. And we do it, in the 2 years we've done it always pretty early on that first day of the meeting, to just kind of force everybody, because we all have a tendency, I think, sometimes to kind of stand with who we know and talk to who we know. And so by really getting everybody that opportunity to have even just 30 seconds to introduce themselves to people in the presidential line, people in charge of committees, people that they might never have gone up to and said hello to, I think it changes the whole kind of vibe of the rest of the meeting. And then at breaks, people now can keep talking to these people they've already met. And I think that's why it's been so well received. And I think it's going to continue to be a really critical part of our kind of mentor-mentee endeavors for the society, because I think it gets that kind of ice broken and gets everybody talking.
It's such a great idea. Chris, I wanted to ask you about another thing that you've been really instrumental in putting together, which is the virtual journal club. It's been very popular. Tell us a little bit, where did you come up with this idea? I know you and Eric have put it together. How did you come up with this idea, and where do you think you're going to take it from here?
That, like, if I'm being truthful, it was mainly Eric's idea. We just were talking about ways to highlight good articles that we thought would be thought-provoking and would improve kind of just the knowledge base of ASES. And we kind of had the idea right around the COVID time, where a lot of meetings were happening with Zoom, and we wanted another way to kind of increase the educational experience during that time. And, it just kind of snowballed into the point where it is now, where we have, thought leaders who are extremely well read and insightful. And we kind of argue over topics that are more controversial. And that's what we try and do. And, I think it's been a great thing. And we've had all of you on it, and it's been just a lot of fun. And it gets controversial. It gets spicy sometimes. It gets argumentative. And sometimes we always have to wonder if, like, we've crossed the line. But overall, it's been a lot of fun to do. And it's just really fun to hear all the really, really well thought out, smart people discussing challenging articles.
So here's a great question. Now's your chance. We have the leadership of the ASES listening, and we want moonshot requests only. Do we have any bold requests or predictions for future areas to involve our early career members in the future? Maybe Melissa, let's start with you.
I think that's a very good question. Probably some kind of engagement with them at the annual meeting, something where early career members can come and get to meet each other, and then also get to meet maybe some of the senior leadership, maybe two separate things, because I think those are different benefits. Some people, sometimes you want to meet the people that are kind of your peers, and then you also want to meet the senior people. I think kind of continuing to build out sort of like almost like cohorts of people that come in, like, these are the people that come in as the fellowships. We know we were all, like, at least I'm very close with people who I interviewed for fellowship with. And so embracing those sort of cohorts, and maybe, utilizing that natural community that each kind of class has to, for activities and fundraising and different things that we want to get the ASE members involved in. ACES has like a whole kind of young surgeon, like, part of ACES, and they have like whole programming, at the meeting, but then separate as well. And people are kind of part of that community as they continue to grow into the rest of sort of the ACES community. And I think as ASES continues to grow, making sure that we really define out our young surgeons and keep them engaged and wanting to be part of the community is going to be more and more important.
Danny, build us out here. Cuff Daddy, you've always got a lot of innovative ideas. What do you think is the next step?
I think the next step is really just to get the younger members engaged with some of the bigger members, the GOATs, right? Like we like to call them, like the Jerry Williams or the Gilles Walsh, or JP Warners, the guys that are just like so big, they seem untouchable and like you're never going to talk to them. Like, I think we need to do something to kind of foster interaction with them. Maybe groups of people, groups of younger people, we could have a contest or something. But I think that's, knowing those guys and just what, or women also, just what they did in their career, how they got there, where they want to be. It's very interesting to kind of pick their brains on things that they would do again and what wouldn't do, and just advice that they have. And I think that's what I get from my fellowship, right? But a lot of guys, I'd be interested to hear like what JP Warner wants to says, or maybe Jules Walsh, or stuff like that. And I just think that fostering those interactions and figuring out ways to kind of get these younger members involved and meet like the goats, I think will really help kind of solidify their like why they're in the ASES and like what they're trying to become, and and how involved they want to be, and where to put their energies, right? I think that they need to meet different people and find out what path they're going to be, so that they can choose what committees they want to be on, what are they passionate about, and really kind of get involved. And now, there's so many committees in the ASES, so I don't know if I'm going to do the membership mentee committee after I'm done being a chair, because there's other committees that I'm kind of interested in. The technology committee sounds pretty cool, but I think that's probably the next step. It's just continuing to get people more involved.
Chris, last but certainly not least, you've been a cash cow of ideas for the ASES. What's your next one?
I just steal people's ideas. You know that, Brian. Also, I want to know the Cuff Daddy nickname. Where did that come from? That's awesome. I think it's twofold for me. Yeah, I feel so, I mean, this is going to get like cheesy, but I feel so lucky to be part of this organization, and it's where I invest all my time, and I just truly love it. And I wish more people around the world and around the country could understand how wonderful it is. And I think that starts from the education level, which would be increasing the educational content of ASES thought leaders, members, to be able to show med students, junior residents, how wonderful shoulder and elbow surgery is and how great the educational material is. And that kind of parlays itself into future engagement with maybe going more into shoulder and elbow surgery for fellowships, which hopefully, I think the ultimate goal would be to have an annual meeting that isn't just a closed meeting. Like, you don't get rid of the closed meeting because it's just amazing and we all meet up there and it feels like a family, but have an open meeting for people who want to get involved but don't really know what ASES is, and they want to understand more of the high level content that we provide for our meetings. And I think it's just to expand it to the broader population of orthopedic surgeons.
Hey, Chris, I think that kind of sounds like National Shoulder and Elbow Week, right? So that's what National Shoulder Elbow Week's about. There's the plug. Come to LA in May 2025. Learn about shoulder elbow surgery.
There it is.
You can
That's
also
the plug.
come to St. Louis in 2025.
That's the plug we've all been waiting for. I knew it was coming. It was only a matter of time until we got it out there from Danny. I love it.
Well done, Cuff Daddy.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little, Peter, but I think so. One of the initiatives from the ASCSF, which I'm getting more involved with, is the National Shoulder Elbow Week. And that's exactly what Chris talked about. So I'm pretty passionate about that. I'm chairing the Los Angeles event, and I think it's great. We basically bring the ASCS as a mobile meeting. We invite residents and we invite, different doctors, all orthopedists, physical therapists, and really kind of expand like the knowledge of the community of like what a shoulder and elbow surgeon is and what the ASCS is and what value we bring to our local communities, to the orthopedic community, and to the nation. But I think that's probably one of the best things that the ASCS has done so far. So good job, leaders. But I think that's kind of the future of like marketing for us and the society.
Well, I want to thank all you guys for coming on. I mean, this has been excellent. I loved hearing about your guys' experiences and what the society means to you and all the efforts you've made to make it better. And I think the main thing you probably heard from everyone is that this is kind of an organization where if you have a good idea, then you can make it happen. And that's to me been the real joy of being involved, is that there's a lot more at least recently, a lot more yes than no, which has been great. So I thank all of you guys for your time. I'm sure listeners will enjoy hearing about all the things that are going on, and really appreciate you guys coming on.
Thanks, everyone.
I think that's about all the time we have for the podcast. We just want to thank our guests. You guys are really beacons of innovation, and truly enjoyed just hearing your individual experiences. For all our shoulder and elbow listeners out there, don't forget to subscribe. And for Peter Chalmers, I'm Brian Waterman. We'll see you next time. Thank you all.